My name is George Suarez Alvarez. I've been a registered nurse for over 6 years with a specialty in critical care. And I am passionate about all things health and wellness, financial literacy, and most importantly, faith. These are topics that I contemplate on a daily basis, and I believe that they're extremely important for all of us to educate ourselves on. And I can't wait, and I'm happy to share the things I've learned about these topics with you. Now, specific to financial literacy, growing up, I wasn't really exposed to it much. Really, to be honest, I didn't even know what it meant until I was probably in my early 20s. And still, it's something that I'm continuously educating myself on because there's so much to learn, right? Earlier this year, I came across this question, and it was, would you rather have $100,000 deposited into your bank account immediately, or go back to when you were your 20-year-old self with the same information that you have today? And I thought to myself, that is such a good question. My answer was undeniably to go back to when I was 20 with the same information I have now. However, the question inspired me to share what I've learned related to financial literacy with you throughout your journey and throughout my journey, and share what I am continuously learning, because it's a continuous process. Time is our greatest asset. And I pray that the things that I share here with you may help you and your family over time in one way or another. And I pray that you gain value from what I'll share. Now, previously, we spoke about what is money. Specifically, we spoke about the first law of thermodynamics, which states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed or transferred. And we spoke about how money is energy. We can either attract it to us or repel it away from us, depending on how we think and how we speak. And we mentioned the first 2 levels out of 4 levels of how to make money: time for money and information for money. Now let's talk about 3 and 4. Number 3 is product or service for money. This here is what most businesses do. Most businesses give you a product or a service for money. It's not information for money. However, the people who deliver a product or service do have information. For example, this morning, I went over to the mechanic because we had to change my wife's oil. So I drove over to the mechanic, and I had the mechanic use the information he has to change the oil for me. The information for money would be the mechanic writing a book on, how to change your oil yourself. But however, in the moment, I wasn't necessarily interested in that. I just wanted to leverage my time and have him change the oil for me. So I drove over there. He delivered the product and the service, and in exchange, I paid him to do that for me. So that's an example of product or service for money. Product and service for money makes up a lot of our society and our economy. There's always going to be products and services that we're going to need. Product and service for money is also tied to time, oftentimes way more time than a typical 9 to 5. For example, you should expect to work from 7 a.m. to midnight on your business, product, or service for years. Much different than a typical 9 to 5. However, if you enjoy what you're doing and you're passionate about progression and growth, it won't feel the same way a typical 9 to 5 feels. Also, you have the potential to decrease the amount of time that you're working on your business, product, and service over time, if that's what you desire, of course. Some people don't desire that, and that's totally fine. However, if that is something that you do desire, the potential is there, and that leads us to number 4, which is systems. Systems for money. This is what the ultra wealthy individuals, corporations, and businesses do. They have their teams and their money make money for them. And generally, through this, they have the ability to achieve the freedom to do what they want, when they want, with who they want, where they want, for as long as they want, which, as Morgan Housel puts it, pays the highest dividends in finance. I really hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he's the author of many books, one of which is called The Psychology of Money, which I actually have here. And I highly, highly recommend this book because it really, as you read it, it really makes you think about how you've thought about money And it puts it in such a good perspective. So if that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend this book. And Morgan Housel says that freedom pays the highest dividends in finance. And that's something that's very interesting. There are many individuals who have accomplished this. And I believe that we all have the potential to achieve this if that's what we desire. I want to conceptualize all these 4 ways through an example. Let's say you're a chef. Shout out to all the chefs out there. Thank you for doing what you do. I love food. In fact, shout out to my favorite chef, my beautiful wife. Thank you for cooking for us constantly and feeding us delicious food. I really appreciate it. Let's say you're a chef. First level would be you choose a restaurant that you love, a restaurant that you resonate with, a restaurant whose cuisine you are infatuated with, and you begin to work at the restaurant. Time for money. Over time, you develop skills, you're learning, you're progressing, and you're getting really, really good at, for the sake of this example, let's call it Latin cuisine. So you develop a lot of information and skills, and you begin to grow in this specific niche. Information for money would be you specify the niche of Latin cuisine, and you may write a cookbook on healthy living through Latin cuisine. Or you may create a masterclass on the secrets to a perfect Latin cuisine meal. That would be examples of information for money. And you can hold your masterclass, you invite the chefs that you've worked with, you invite the people who support you the most, and you might earn a few dollars. But however, you begin to gain attention and recognition, and you begin to gain the audience and the people who are willing to learn from you, and they want to learn from you because you've become a master of your craft. And over time, you begin to have more of these master classes, and you begin to increase the cost of attendance and have less people there. You might charge a few $100, but there are talented chefs that want to learn from you, so they come. And let's say that you're doing that, you absolutely love it, and you're smart, so you save and you invest in yourself. And over time, you've developed more and more skills. You've grown your recognition. People know who you are. They believe in your skills. And you decide, you know what? I think I want to open up my own restaurant. And that leads us to level 3, product or service. You decide to take all the money that you've been saving through your classes and through your work and to invest it in yourself through doing something like opening your own restaurant. And you might reach out to the talented chefs in your network, the ones you've worked with, the ones that have been to your master classes, let them know your idea, and they may be willing to come and work and see your vision. Now you're working early mornings, late nights, but over time, it becomes worth it. You become to gain some recognition, you gain some good reviews, people love your restaurant, you have a good ambiance, you cater excellently, and you have a great hospitality. Over time, it becomes little by little more and more successful. Now, you've been working a lot, and you might think to yourself, I want to get married now, or maybe you have some children, or maybe you want to pursue different endeavors, and in order to pursue those different endeavors, you need more time. So that leads us to level 4. You decide, you know what? I'm going to look at the top A-list chefs that I know in my network, and I want to bring them into the team and grow. And concurrently, you work less when you bring in these people and you build these teams and you lead them in the right way. So now you're at the restaurant less, but you notice that with or without you, it's still doing great. You can leave for 1 year, come back, and it's doing just as good or better. And that's how you know you've created the system. And now you might be looking at different cities or different locations thinking to yourself, I kind of want to rinse and repeat this process. Obviously, it takes much more than that. It takes specific virtues, specific skill sets to do this, but it's just an example. And I want to use it to really show that it's possible. There's more ways of making money than time for money. And something that's super important to know is that each level will require a different version of you. The George at level 1 is different than the George at level 2 and level 3 and level 4. The George at level 4 speaks and acts and thinks in a different way than the George at level 1. So different levels require different versions, and the journey requires virtues and skill sets in education, continuous self-progression. So we have the capabilities of tapping into all of these levels through education, changing the way that we think and changing the way that we speak. Now you might ask yourself, what do I want? What industry am I in? What level do I currently make a majority of my income from? And is it the same level that I'd like to continue making my income from? If your answer is yes, that's incredible. I want to hear from you. If your answer is no, that's also incredible. I'd like to hear from you. Comment down below. Send me a message. I'd love to conversate. What level are you? What level do you want to be at? I look forward to hearing from you guys.